for your host, here she goes.
Welcome to Diary of a Botox Bitch podcast.
Oh man, I can't get enough of your voice. Keep on talking.
Hi, I'm Dr. Botox. Welcome to my podcast, Diary of a Botox Bitch. On this show, we talk about all things reality TV. We spill the tea on shows that are being filmed here or airing here in downtown Beverly Hills, which is where we're coming to you live from. I also talk about the different shows that I did. I did a lot of reality TV back across the pond. One of the shows I did was called The Real Housewives of Ireland, Dublin Housewives, Southside Housewives, whatever the fuck it's been called this week. I also did a show in the UK called Big Brother, Celebrity Big Brother, and Celebrity Big Brother is a lot like Big Brother, but a lot less celebrity. I also presented a show called 50 Plastic Surgery Shockers. I was the doctor host on that for a little while, and it was a countdown of the worst plastic surgery shockers. It's like a UK version of Botched, or as I like to call it, 50 Fucked Up Faces. At the moment, there's a lot of speculation over Kyle and Maurizio's marriage, and we covered that in the last episode. Also back on screens is Big Brother in the UK after a 5-year hiatus. I want to dish the dirt and spill the tea on what actually goes on. The thing really is, I suppose, to start with just the conditions of the house that we moved into. The house was filthy dirty, and I'm not actually watching the show at the moment because I don't want to watch the civilians. It's just kind of embarrassing. It's cringe. At least we got paid for it to go in and do that horrible show. We'll also go into our section on Botox, which is where I talk about all things Botox, lip filler, and whatever questions are coming in today or people are posing on TikTok. And also, we would like to thank our sponsors, Dermaface MD Skincare, Aerospace MD Skincare, and La Dollar Skin Urban Skincare from Los Angeles. We'll also do a little section on skincare. But first of all, I am going to start with Big Brother, and I'm going to dive straight in. You know, I am used to filming low budget reality TV because I've been doing it for a long time. I've done it on and off for 10, 11 years now. And I remember certain days with the Real Housewives of Ireland, Housewives or Dublin Wives, or whatever the fuck it's been called, we used to be told to bring 3 different outfits because we would film 3 different days. You know, we'd change outfits and then it would be 3 different days filmed in the one day to save money. And I get that, and that's okay early on in a show for the earlier seasons. Totally fine. So I'm used to that. So sometimes we'd be having food somewhere and the bill would come at the end of the producer. We had one producer called Johns Norton or something like that. John, I don't know. I didn't like him. I like the other producer, Steve. I got some horrible letters from John Snorton actually, so I must at some stage on the episode read them out and go through my reply. It was very quick-whipped. As you know, with me, I don't suffer full, but I am used to doing reality TV shows where it's low budget, you know, we're moving around and we're doing the best we can, and I kind of like those. They're raw and they're uncut and there's jump shots, and I like all the style of all of those things. I really do. But what I would say about Big Brother is it was a huge production, massive production team, a massive casting team. We're all in hiding for 3 days before the show. We had chaperones. You know, as soon as you check in, literally you're brought into the hotel through a back door. They've umbrellas covering you because the paparazzi and the press know that it's a specific hotel because it's very near the Elstree studio where Big Brother and Celebrity Big Brother, it's not actually a house, it's a soundstage. It's a studio. You live on a studio. The hotel is an industrial estate. It's a 3-star hotel. It was appalling. They used to give us a food budget. Like, it was horrible. We weren't allowed to go down to the restaurant. You literally come in, you make a last phone call, your phone, your iPad, everything is taken off you, and you sit in a hotel for 3 days with a chaperone. Mine was, I can't even remember her name, but she was like, I think she was a school teacher or something. She's a miserable little bitch. Anyway, she did not let me do anything. Like, nobody had any phones, but people who were cigarette smokers used to be going out all the time, and you could kind of guess. I remember hearing certain people and being like, oh my goodness, I think I know who that is. And people who were cigarette smokers were brought out every hour or every half hour, whenever they wanted a cigarette to go outside. But I'm not a cigarette smoker, so I hate smoking cigarettes. So I sat in the room the whole time, and then sometimes you could go into your chaperone's room, which was directly opposite. The only time you were alone was when you were asleep at night. When you wanted to go to the restroom, you had to leave the door open. It was so weird. Like, for why? For what? Also, you bring in all your suitcases and all your stuff gets transferred into Celebrity Big Brother suitcases. I actually still have mine. I just wonder, are they in storage here in the office, or I don't know where they are. They're definitely not in storage in Ireland, but I think I have them with me. Very robust suitcases, so they transfer everything. And I remember I had meticulously ironed everything, so I was really pissed off that they were going to unpack everything because I had all my outfits together and in typical OCD manner, so I was definitely pissed about that, but whatever. The weirdest thing as well is you see various different people. You meet the producers and stuff, but I'd met them already a few times, and actually they flew into Dublin to meet with me because what happened was I had done the Real Housewives of Ireland, Southside Housewives, Dublin Wives, whatever it's been called this week, and I'd done a couple of seasons, and then the head of the network, he was English and he went back to Channel 5, and Big Brother had just moved to Channel 5, and so he cast me. I mean, they came in to meet me and flew in to meet me, but I realised looking back I was cast already. And it's so funny, right up until I actually went, you know, when you walk down the gangway into the show, I was terrified someone would find out, banished and not allowed to do the show, so much so that I actually had a squamous cell carcinoma in situ removed before I went in, and I actually had to take out my own sutures in the mirror. So it's strange looking back. Like, I don't know why I did the show at that time and I didn't put it off. But again, I was so terrified also that someone would find out. I remember telling family members, but just literally days before I went. And I didn't tell any friends. And the worst thing was that my agent at the time said to me, change your phone number before you go in. So I guess he wanted a situation to arise where when I came out that no one could get to me unless they went through him, so he gets his money. But it was funny when I came out the other side and I realised to this day, it really made me very cut off from all my friends. When you do a big, huge show like that and you suddenly come out and 5 million people in England, you know, you're on the underground, everyone suddenly knows who you are when you're back out in the real world and you don't have your support and your friends. It was just weird, actually, to be quite honest. It was a very lonely couple of days afterwards when I came out, because you're also waiting to do all the media interviews and the media circus and all that. So yeah, it was a funny, that show was disgusting. No amount of money, and I got paid well, but no amount of money would have me do that show ever again. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Super toxic. Even when we were in hiding, they send in a psychiatrist to speak with you, and I thought that's really a great duty of care. So funny, when I got out and when I went back home, there was certain, I can't remember what it was tabloid headlines about something. There's always tabloid headlines, and I remember being quite distressed by and asking to speak to the psychiatrist, because I thought they were there to help us, and so that I could just ask their advice. And sure, there's no psychiatrist available to you after you do any of these reality TV shows. And looking back on it, when I did speak to the psychiatrist, they asked me what I was afraid of and my deepest fears, and I thought, this is great. I've never seen a psychiatrist in my life. I'm getting a free hour session. And actually I said, I don't know how it came up, but I said I don't like swimming in the sea too much, and I don't like swimming in lakes, and I'm afraid of eels. They kind of guided me through what I was afraid of and what my biggest fears were. And sure enough, the first task we did, I was in a bath with eels. It's disgusting. So when Bethany Frankel said people do well out of reality TV, and she certainly did well, and you know, and I have a lot to thank for reality TV for sure, but also as well, the reality TV reckoning is for real. When I look back on what they did, it was disgusting. Imagine having someone tell your deepest, darkest secret. And it wasn't until I watched, if you ever want to know really about how bad reality TV is, watch the sitcom, an American sitcom. It's called Unreal. It's a half-hour scripted show, single cam, and it is filmed. They did 5 or 6 episodes. It's actually a great show, but it was actually written by the producer of The Bachelorette, who was a producer of reality TV show, who then transitioned over and actually wrote a sitcom all about it. And I remember looking at that and going, shout TV, going, oh my goodness, like I was horrified at how exploitative it was and how exploited I had been by doing it. Looking back on it now, they were all so fake, like just mind games. And I'm not one to hold back. I'll say it how it is, not just to my cast members, but I'll also call producers out. I don't give a shit, because there's always people I get on well. Like I said, my Roz, my favourite producer of Celebrity Big Brother, she's still the head honcho. Actually, she's much higher up now, and I'll always text her every 2 or 3 months. Steve, my producer from Real Housewives, again, I'll be in touch periodically. There'll be lots of texts, and then there won't be for a while or whatever. Again, huge space in my heart. And again, I deliver. I'm reality TV fucking gold. I'm basically an Irish Sicario or an Irish reality TV gun for hire, but like not the IRA. Although in saying that, I am the great grannies of Michael Collins, one of the most influential men arguably in Irish history. He was president of Ireland, so I'm basically an Irish Kennedy. Do I have any notions to run for presidency? Oh my gosh, this came up a few times recently. I mean, 2 words, political pedigree. Maybe we'll do another podcast episode on that, because the presidency of Ireland is up for election. I was going to say negotiate. I do have a huge political family, trial attorneys. Growing up in Ireland, I grew up in the mean streets of South Central Dublin 4, said basically Irish Beverly Hills, but I had 2 choices to survive. It was tough, you know, go to med school or take the bar exams. And obviously actually my own C drops next year in January. It's called Diary of a Botox Bitch. It's all spilling the tea on all things reality TV and hacks for Botox and whatnot. And at the end of this podcast, I will read a little bit from my book. We're on chapter 2, so I'm good. And actually, I just got to the part in the last episode where I'd kind of forgotten about this. We spoke about the first time we met Dr. Frederick Grant, the New York and Miami Botox doctor. He was Baron of Botox. He had a huge clinic. Sadly, he passed away. I think it was 2015. And again, I just had come to that bit, so I actually thought it was a good point to pause, but we will pick it up from there, from when we spoke about that. It's nice to remember the journey I've been on the last 10 years. So back to Big Brother. Disgusting. We're in hiding. The night of the launch was actually super cool, because you know, you got your dress on and you come in, and I couldn't believe it. Some of the people who were there was like Dustin Diamond was on the year I did. Sweet Soli was always very nice to me. I'll give you some gossip about him a little bit later on. Also Courtney Stodden, who was the child bride married to the guy, the Green Mile. She's now quite vocal about the fact that she feels like she was groomed and married off very young. She was there in the house as well, and actually rescued my hair, because one of the other housemates got it all knotted up, and actually Courtney sorted that out. There's also a couple of other reality TV stars. There was some soap stars, the usual suspects, and some crazy people as well. But when we actually moved in, I was horrified. The kitchen had all crumbs on it. So the civilian Big Brother gets done first. In America, they just have one Big Brother, which tends to be celebrity and high profile people. In the UK, they have a civilian one, which runs for I think 8 or 10 weeks. And that's what's on back at the moment in the UK. But the one that I did was a celebrity Big Brother. So you get paid a fee to do it. And it's much shorter. It's 2 weeks or 2 weeks and 2 days or something. So we moved in afterwards, and I remember it being disgusting, and I remember being up in the diary room like a complete Karen going, just to let you know, there's loads of crumbs and it's filthy dirty. And they were like, well, we don't have time to change it around because it's a very quick turnover from the civilians. They just, looking back now, they actually didn't give a flying fuck. They had no intention of cleaning it for us. We were treated like dogs. They didn't give us any food. And I know Celebrity Big Brother, you get tasks and whatever, but we didn't get food. There was no food to eat. They used to drop in bread every day at about 2 o'clock that we'd have to bake ourselves. So by the time we got to 4 o'clock, you have a complete carbicide. And then they put loads of alcohol in the house, obviously, of course. And some people also sobriety. I remember there was one girl going around who was meant to be sober, and she used to have a Le Creuset cup, and in it the whole time was red wine. She was absolutely inebriated the whole time. And there was a smoking section outside. Again, I don't like cigarettes. So I had no vices really, and it was just weird. And also when you get out as well, I remember you're always looking for because you have a microphone around you the whole time, and then you put your microphone battery into the hatch, and then you get new batteries. It's just weird. You have a thing around your neck, and then when you get out, you're always grasping for the thing around your neck, because for 2.5 weeks you've lived with this microphone around your neck. And it's funny when you're out in public after you get out of the Celebrity Big Brother house and you're there like this, like, I remember my friend Claire was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just looking for the microphone. The other weird thing as well is every time you go to the restroom, or the loo as they say in England, in a hotel. So I remember we were down in Little Italy. There's a cool little kind of Italian place on a barge on the river, and the restrooms are just kind of off to the side. And every time I go, I'd be knocking on the door, because when you're in the Big Brother house, you always knock on the door before you use the bathroom, because they don't let you lock the door, and you become very institutionalized very quickly. Like, it's quite crazy. I remember being about day 6 going, I could live like this forever. It was just weird. So weird. And then one night we came back from a task and the curtain had fallen down. So behind each bed there's these massive screens, and in there is a TV camera, a full like TV camera that is a broadcast quality TV camera, and there's about 10 of them all over the place. There's also GoPros everywhere, so you're chatting, you'll hear the GoPros, large GoPros come down and zoom in and whatnot. So the very first night was weird. Courtney Stodden had brought in some teddy bear that got wet, and they put it through some drying thing, and I remember just thinking, this is literally the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And I just hung out with Dustin Diamond and Abs from the band 5, and we were just kind of going like, what have we signed up for? At that point in time, I remember looking around going, oh Lord. So it was kind of interesting from that point of view. Yeah, it was funny. Then you kind of get into the groove of things, and I feel like as well, I do feel like British tabloids, or the British in general, often can be a little bit anti-Irish in some ways, or just a little bit racist, you know, like, oh, like, it's just funny. I think it's funny because, to be honest with you, all the American companies have their HQ in Dublin in the Republic of Ireland, because the workforce are so highly educated. We all do like at least 1 degree, if not 2, and masters and stuff. And in England, a lot of people actually, they leave school at 16, whereas in Ireland, people leave school at 18. And like I said, the majority of people go to school and take, you know, 3rd level education. And in England, a lot of people don't even do the equivalent of A level. They leave school at 16. And I just certainly wouldn't say that the workforce would be as educated as the Irish, to be honest. So I think it's still really funny the way the British kind of, I don't know, they just be a little bit racist towards the Irish, I feel like sometimes. And I feel like certainly just some of the angles and the story angles, I was just like, really, you know, it was just, I just feel like I didn't particularly stand a chance, which is also fine, like whatever. I also feel like I changed my name from my Irish kind of Gaelic spelling of Meagher to Marr, which was probably a dumb idea, and I was actually warned against doing it, because when people wanted to Google who I was, they couldn't actually find me, because suddenly it was Marr. All the previous many articles over the years had been Meagher, so that was kind of a dumb move on my part, and my publicist and my agent both warned me against it, but I was like, no one can say Meagher, so I'm just going to change it to the English spelling. So that was dumb. I also took the advice and changed my phone number, so when I got out, like I said, it was a very lonely time for me. And then when I came back to Ireland again, it took a while till everyone had my number, and I don't know, I just kind of feel like you come out and you're quite cut off very quickly. As soon as I got out of the house, family members flew in and I saw them for a day, but very quickly I had to do all the media circus, and then I was back and forth for 2 or 3 weeks doing TV appearances, and they always flew you first class British Airways, which was kind of cool. But also, you know, it was just, I don't know if you get paid enough to do that show. I don't know if any amount of money is enough to do that show. It was just really, really disgusting, and it's back on at the moment now after a 5-year hiatus, and I really do feel that Celebrity Big Brother is just an ultimate of what Bethany Frankel is talking about. And I am grateful to the reality TV shows that I did, because it's certainly the Real Housewives of Ireland certainly skyrocketed my business, and I was one of the first Botox clinics in Ireland, and it had gone from almost people perceiving Botox, it was almost like a backstreet abortion where people were sneaking down with glasses on, and then it became quite mainstream. Subsequently it got super saturated market. which is why I sold off a lot of my clinics and just, I did the same with the teeth whitening. I was one of the first people, like I said, I'm dual qualified as a DDS. I was one of the first people to do teeth whitening. I had dermadental, so I sold that off and then pivoted to dermaface. But then Botox became very super saturated and it became difficult to compete with one particular, they're not even run by doctors or anything. It's like non-medical people cutting the price. And I just thought, you know what, I had kind of done my time as well. And I had been back and forth to LA a few times and I had started doing stand-up comedy at that stage. So I knew those. I have 2 shows. I just got booked this evening for another show at the Comedy Store in Sunset this next month. I already have a date at the Comedy Store in the Sunset. I was at the Comedy Store in La Jolla. The last 2 weekends I've been at the Ice House in Pasadena. Like amazing stages, amazing rooms, main rooms, big rooms. Not at the Comedy Store in Sunset though. I've done the Belly Room and the OR Room. But yeah, I just felt like it was super saturated and I kind of done my time. I'd earned my stripes. I still look after a couple of high network individuals and a lot of my original clients as well. But I haven't been taking on too many new clients. And so there's a long wait list. And I think my real passion as well is since I had skin cancer, I had to formulate products that would actually fix my own skin barrier. And I didn't ever plan to do skincare. But then once I had to fix my own skin barrier, I just became quite passionate about it. So again, the show is sponsored by Dermaface MD. So we have Dermaface MD 1000x Advanced Hyaluronic Acid Serum. And again, the new Medical Blue also, which is phenomenal. And then also triple peptide eye cream. And again, we have a new color for fall, which is a limited edition triple peptide eye cream, which is great also. So I think this is a good time to transition into the section we call Botox, which is all things Botox and fillers. And like I said, with regard to hyaluronic, this is a topical hyaluronic. So obviously if you're having hyaluronic injected, the needle will deliver the hyaluronic directly into the dermis and the epidermis. And the bigger the molecule, the better, because the more plump you'll get. And obviously a hyaluronic molecule will attract 1,000 times its weight in water. But when you're putting it on topically, you don't have the needle. So you really want to have a combination of a kind of a medium weight hyaluronic acid molecule and then a heavier weighted hyaluronic acid molecule. And then to kind of dovetail it with like maybe a fatty acid lipid tail so that you hope it gets absorbed in. But you have to pat it on wet skin. And then what you do is you pat it on wet skin and then you'll put some moisturizer to seal it in afterwards. And funnily enough, here's one I have made earlier. This is the Aerospace MD because I'm dual qualified as a DDS MD, but I also, my first degree was actually aerospace and engineering. And I love boats. I've sailed across the Atlantic. I actually have a yacht master's and a master's in yacht. So yeah. And again, in America, the riches are in the niches, as they say. So Aerospace MD, first product we have, and it's an oxygenating moisturizing, an advanced detoxifying moisturizer, oxygenating moisturizer. So that's great to be placed over hyaluronic acid serum from Dermaface MD. So all things skincare are all encompassing, to be honest, because you want it to be from the outside in for sure. And I do feel like somebody asked me recently, what's the natural alternative to Botox? Bitch, there isn't one. Get your Botox done because you have a combination of static and dynamic lines, so they need to be taken care of. I feel like in this particular episode, we've talked a lot about Big Brother and a lot about the reality TV reckoning. And what I will say is I do hope that Bethany Frankel, I saw Heidi and Spencer actually did Big Brother the year before me, Celebrity Big Brother in the UK, and poor Ryland was still traumatized the year that I went in and he was actually hosting Big Brother's little brother. And they're great. I saw Heidi and Spidey and Spencer recently saying, don't worry about the reality TV reckoning that Bethany Frankel is executing. We are available to do reality TV, yada, 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 which was kind of funny. And actually I texted it to one of the producers of the Real Housewives over here. Actually, shut up, what are you talking about? I'll edit that bit out. But yes, I feel like when you start, you're so keen. Like, here's the thing. My agent in London, my original agent, said to me, unless you've got stuff to sell, don't do reality TV. But I didn't care. I just wanted to do reality TV because I want to do TV. I love TV. I've always loved TV. I have a master's in digital film and TV and filmmaking. Like, I'm obsessed with TV. I think for a long time I was kind of embarrassed to say I'd done a lot of reality TV, especially when I first came here. And then I realized America embraces this. They're mad for reality TV. Like, the number one show at the moment is Selling Sunset. I don't know about the name. I think it should be called Hookers and Heels. Or how about Hollywood Hills, Hoochie Mamas? I don't know, but it's the number one show. They just dropped a season the other day on Netflix. I think it's season 7 or 8. And again, it's huge. It's super popular. So I always feel like unless you have stuff to sell, don't do it. And I wish, looking back, I had mobilized, more and I wish I had a skincare range to sell at the time, because there's only so many of me who could inject Botox and filler, so it was very labor intensive. Whereas if you've got a skincare range, you've different people doing the marketing, or, not when you start off, but, you've different people fulfilling the product, and it's not as labor intensive. You'll have an 8% return of products typically. But for the most part, nobody's going to be emailing you over your turkey and cranberry on Christmas Day going, "Ooh, I've got a droopy eye." And you're like, bitch, you didn't even get your forehead injected, so like shut the fuck up. You know, I used to get all these patients, they're like, ooh, and like, you're too cheap to even, you got your crow's feet done, how can you get a droopy eye? You can only get a droopy eye if you have it close to your brow here on your frontalis muscle. Like, seriously, Becky, fuck off, I'm having my cranberry and turkey. God, I have to breathe here because I'm still traumatized from some of the patients. It's funny, I never had a complaint against me. I never had anything. I feel like I got in, I did my time and I got out, but it became more and more difficult in terms of, well, actually, that's a lie. It became easier because I became better at patient selecting, and I just patient selected very, very carefully. But at the same time, it was exciting when I started off. You know, it was a huge challenge, but it became boring. Like, you could tie my hands and feet together, put me down the block, and I'd be back to the room in 2 minutes, and your Botox would be done in 1 minute. It became not challenging. And it's funny, I do less time on the clinic floor nowadays, and I had lunch earlier on with one of the Botox doctors here, and we were just talking about it, and part of me was like, woo, I'd love if like tomorrow I was just doing an afternoon of Botox, because it's kind of therapeutic in some ways. Like I said, I could do it in personally, I prefer to do my own Botox because I think I am by far the best at doing it. I certainly know my own face very well, and I'm super gentle. I did my lips once and I did very good on the right hand side because I'm right handed, and then I completely fucked up the left side. I had a massive hematoma, a massive bruise. But then in saying that, last week when I filmed I had my lips done about a week or 10 days ago, and I actually had a massive hematoma here. In fact, I did the Comedy Store in La Jolla Wednesday, a week ago, and I had a massive bruise. And on stage, I was convinced when I was doing my stand-up comedy set that there was a lady who kind of looking at me. So I was like, oh yeah, the Botox bitch fucked up her own face. And I made a joke, but the lady came up afterwards and she said, oh, I didn't even notice the bruise. I just was looking at your lips. So, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? I feel like in this light, you can't, the bruise is now gone, which is good. But also as well, someone has a screen test tomorrow. So she has a load of fake tan brewing. I stink. In fact, also this is a good time to talk to you about my pronouns are Botox Bitch. Merch is available on www.diaryofabotoxbitch.com. Skincare is available on Dermaface MD and aerospacemd.com, and you can mix and match. Also coming very soon is the Dollar Skin, and that is my love letter to Los Angeles. The colours are baby pink and baby blue, and the entry price point is a little bit lower than the more medical grade, but it's formulated and made in the same lab, so it's still badass. And that's the thing about my product, there has been no expense spared in the R&D and the formulation. The packaging I've done sensibly, I haven't gone crazy on the packaging, and you can certainly mix and match, and it'll be shipped out, and it's free shipping over $40. So I think that brings us to the point where I will just do a last little bit of a read of book Diary of a Botox Bitch, and I'm just going to pick up where we had been speaking about the fact that we were at a conference in Monaco and Monte Carlo, and if the truth be known, one of the favourite Botox doctors was the New York celebrity Botox doctor, who we all thought was a total legend because he injected 250 vials of Botox per month. So I'm going to pick up from this point in time. The person I'm talking about is actually Frederick Brand, who is just the biggest Botox account. They used to call him the Baron of Botox, and he was a real sweet soul. I remember he had the coolest, like he was walking down the steps to go and take his lecture and do his lecture, and he had just like, I think he was wearing Golden Goose or Converse, just cool sneakers, and he's just super cool. And I said, this is me reading from the book, I said his hair was GHD'd to within an inch of his life, you know, hair straighteners. And I doubt if either his hair or his face had moved for the best part of 30 years. I think he was 65 when he passed away in 2015. He had trained us in the US. He did know us, even though we convinced ourselves we were his colleagues. He was really echelons above us at that point in time. He was just the OG, the GOAT Botox doctor. He did know us because the previous year at the start of his lecture, How to Undroop a Droopy Eye, my colleague Dr. Ben had asked a question. So he kind of knew us and I think he kind of was mesmerised by us, but also was like, shut your fucking mouth and don't be asking dumb questions. So we did feel like we were calling and known to him, albeit much in the same way a criminal is known to the police possibly. And it wasn't even my colleague's fault, and we certainly didn't mean to cause a scene. What happened was, I remember what happened now. What happened was, you go on all these trips. So when we go down to Monte Carlo, we're brought down by a pharmaceutical company. No longer so much, because they used to buy us basically. And depending on how much Botox you did, you'd either be in the Hotel de Paris, or you'd be in the Fairmount, or if you were terrible and you had a small account, you'd be two villages over in Villefranche-sur-Mer, which is also beautiful. But this guy had the biggest Allergan account. So what happened was, at a certain pharmaceutical company stand, they had an abundance of both alcoholic Bucks Fizz and non-alcoholic Bucks Fizz on their stand at the conference in Monaco. And it was late in the day and we were hungry and thirsty, and neither I or my pal had, we don't drink alcohol. I mean, it's not that I'm sober or anything, I just don't like the taste of it. Although I will have the odd glass of pink Veuve Clicquot, but I can't even drink ordinary champagne. I just get sick on it. I don't like it. And I don't mean drunk sick. I don't like it at all. I don't like the taste of red wine. I can't stand white wine unless I dilute it down with loads of Sprite and loads of ice. I just don't like it. Ben really drink alcohol, so we thought it was wonderful that this company at the Monaco conference was offering non-alcoholic Bucks Fizz. In fact, we were rather impressed by this anti-aging manoeuvre on their part, catering for the teetotalers and the non-alcoholic drinking anti-aging ambassadors among us. Like, alcohol is really aging, so don't drink it. We had a glass or two of the non-alcoholic Bucks Fizz and some delicious petit four at the stand before we realised on the third plastic flute we had consumed in about 3 minutes, we were really thirsty, that we were running seriously late for the 5 o'clock lecture that we'd been waiting for all day, which was with Dr. Frederick Brandt. The famous American Botox doctor was speaking, and he was due to start in less than 30 seconds. We then found ourselves embroiled in discussions with security who said the lecture was full and that there was no seats for us, and our plastic flutes of non-alcoholic Bucks Fizz, which we now know was actually the alcoholic version. I was actually feeling a bit lightheaded at this stage and quite giddy. I was thinking, if this is what non-alcoholic Bucks Fizz does to you, then imagine what the real stuff would do. I'd only had champagne once previously and ended up reenacting Pocahontas the next day. Yeah, I get sick on champagne. So it's a beverage I have avoided most of my adult life, except the odd glass of pink Veuve Clicquot, and I'm particularly partial to it at Havre on Beverly, down in Beverly Hills. Dr. Ben was looking also a little wild-eyed at this point in time. He was wearing a crisp white t-shirt that bore a picture of large lips dripping with blood and was telling everybody, listen to him, that this is what could happen if you let beauty therapists, or as we call them, beauty terrorists, inject your lips. Because in England now, they actually let beauticians inject lips. It's insane to me. I don't even want to go to get tattoos off somebody, because somebody who's a tattoo artist is breaking the skin. And they haven't had 7 years of med school and all the nurses screaming at you and cross-infection control beaten into you. And I just don't think anyone who is not a doctor or an RN should be breaking the skin. Anyway, and especially not beauty terrorists, as we call them. So my colleague was getting more and more animated and still holding his third glass of the non-alcoholic Bucks Fizz, which we now know was actually alcoholic. I too was feeling very passionate about the problem of these beauty terrorists illegally injecting poor patients. It's no longer illegal in England, they can do it. It was at this stage that Isabella told us to calm down. That was our other friend, as we were being a bit loud. Next thing along came the New York celebrity Botox doctor, obviously Fred Brandt, who was also refused entry to the lecture despite informing security that he was in fact the faculty and therefore kind of necessary for the whole fucking lecture. It was his lecture. He was also late, sneaking in with us. So considering this New York doctor's attire consisted of a shirt, a tie paired with rugby tights, and he had shorts on and kind of rugby coloured tights, and custom made Adidas high top trainers with Monte Carlo embroidered on the side. I remember they were so cool. He was just so cool. Any of Dr. Fred's and patients, I'm sure they still adore him and miss him. He was just such a cool motherfucker. So yeah, he came bounding down, was late for his own lecture, and like not terribly late, but you know, he was waiting for his fans to be seated, and he had these custom made Adidas high top trainers, because he told us all about them afterwards, with the Monte Carlo embroidered on the side. So you could perhaps forgive security for not letting him in. This famous New York Botox doctor was being most gracious, and then my friend, armed with the confidence of the 3 fruits of the non-alcoholic Bucks Fizz, which we now know was alcoholic, decided to take over negotiations on behalf of Dr. Fred Brandt and in French. Now, bearing in mind, that would be fine, except my colleague didn't actually speak any French whatsoever. So to cut a long story short, there ended up being a bit of an argy-bargy at the door before all 3 of us, excluding the New York Dr. Botox, were escorted off the premises of the Grimaldi Forum in Monaco. On exiting the building into the bright sunshine, it was quite apparent that we were in fact all quite drunk, and we had, in our innocence, been drinking the real deal and not the non-alcoholic Bucks Fizz. Luckily, hardly anybody other than the 400 people in the lecture saw us being led out of the building, and security was ever so discreet. Well, I guess they would have been when throwing out 3 well-known Botox doctors who were accidentally drunk. So you can see why the American doctor probably didn't view us as colleagues, but we still loved him. We loved Dr. Fred Brandt, and I think his patience. It's funny, when I forgot, because I haven't read this draft in a while, and I read it in my last episode of Diary of a Botox Bitch, and it caught me a little bit here, and I had to gather myself and pick up where this is. But then again, you can see why the American doctor probably didn't view us as colleagues, but we still loved him, as he was the biggest Botox injector on the east coast of America and also Miami. Later that night, we accosted him on the steps of the Buddha Bar to get a group shot of us all. I must find that photo, actually. And he congratulated us on rescuing ourselves from the rest of the faculty for the remainder of the afternoon. He said it was actually really boring. The thing about this lovely man was each year he would try to speedily move away from us. I remember at every conference he'd just be like, there's the crazy ones. But we always caught up with him. And in fairness, he would remain totally unflappable, was always super polite and super kind, even though he was clearly dying to get away from us. But he always gave us time and spoke with us. But then it's easy to look unflappable if you've, been doing this a long time. And this lovely man has since passed away, and it was a very sad day when the news came in of his passing, as he was and always will be the original and best Dr. Botox. I'm just a little choked now, because he was actually a sweetheart, and it's just, I don't know, when people pass away in that way, it always jars me, because I think we've all lost people in that way. Yeah, so it says lovely man since passed away, and it was a very sad day. And I remember getting the news, and it was a shock. He was a gentleman, a kind soul, and absolutely adored by everybody. So may he rest in peace. The original goat and the Botox Baron and just the original Dr. Botox, Fred Brandt. Huge practices in New York and Miami. So I think I will leave it there and say thank you so much for listening to this latest episode of Diary of a Botox Bitch. I'm Dr. Botox, Dr. Danielle Marr Collins, and I will catch up with you soon. And don't forget to listen to the portion of the podcast called Botox, in which we talk all things Botox, filler and skincare, and I try to give you the best educational advice. And that's it for me now. Bye.
I know it's exactly what you've been waiting for, so let's do this.
Welcome to the segment we call Bo Talks. Let's talk all things Botox, filler and skincare.